When it comes to being a world-class fucking douche canoe, Trooper Michael Proctor wrote the book. And it's delightful to see a guy like this get up on the stand and have someone of the caliber of Alan Jackson just bash him around, because it was explosive. And I've only even seen parts of it, but let me tell you kind of what I've put together so far. So the state police are called into the investigation by mid-morning because the Canton PD has to recuse themselves from the situation. So we know that Proctor and Buchanan essentially kind of arrive in Canton around 11 a.m. That's when they officially take over the scene. They are given a download of information from the Canton PD and everything they're given at the time. So they're given all of kind of the reports and what they found and what the paramedics found. And what's essentially what he testified to was that the first impression he was given based on the information that he'd received was that John O'Keefe had been beaten to death. You know, his head was injured, but he had no bodily injury, nothing below the neck, right? So it was all up in his head, and the death was clearly, based on what the police reports were saying, what the paramedics were saying, this was definitely a physical altercation. But Proctor's brought in to investigate, so he's got to investigate. He gets all this information from the Canton PD, sends them on their way, and then he heads over to the McCabe's home. So there he takes witness statements, doesn't ask them to come to the police station. He gets witness statements from them in their home. So he talks to Matt McCabe, Jen McCabe, and Brian Albert, who conveniently is there too. Never on the first day. So the entire day goes by, Proctor never goes to the scene. He never goes to the Albert's house. He never goes to the lawn. He never goes inside the house. He has no autopsy because it's just day one. So he has no autopsy, no notes from the medical examiner. He doesn't have a cause of death yet. He only has the small pieces of evidence that had been collected throughout the day. So the Canton PD, the things they found, I think they found a shoe and a phone, and they collected the blood in the Solo cups. Then as the CERT team came in, they found a few more things. They found the other shoe. I think they found a bar glass. So there was other things being found throughout the day. He's got that small tidbit of information. They hadn't yet officially even what I would call is kind of canvass the area, right? They hadn't gone to the waterfall or the other bar and gotten the copies of the video. They hadn't gotten any Ring cameras. They hadn't really talked to any neighbors. There wasn't any other investigation that had taken place that was away from the lawn at that point. He goes to Karen's parents' house in Dighton and he interviews Karen at her parents' home. Her SUV is outside about to be impounded. There's an officer outside that testified that the taillight was only cracked. The car is impounded at 4:16 p.m., yet Proctor writes down on a report that they took it at 5:30, then claimed in court that it was a typo. I don't know how you get 4:16 and 5:30 mixed up, but this boy did it. So imagine how 16 hours after John O'Keefe is declared dead at Good Samaritan Hospital, Michael Proctor can get on his phone and text 9 of his high school buddies and tell them that Karen Read killed him. Quote, that he had it wrapped up. So when he arrives at 11 a.m. and hears all the early evidence, he testified that he believed that he'd been beaten to death. But then he talked to Matt and Jen McCabe. You know where this is going. Didn't bother to go to the house, didn't bother to collect video, didn't bother to do anything else, took a truck that wasn't nearly as damaged as he claimed it was, and then blamed it all on Karen Read. And then we can all see this fucker built the case based on what he wanted it to be. Now, when he's up on the stand, we saw him say this repeatedly, that he follows the facts and the evidence. Bless his heart, he's such a fucking liar. Because guess what? There was at least 12 other people at the party that he didn't bother talking to right away. Nicole Albert, Brian Higgins, Sarah Levinson, Ryan Nagel, Julie Nagel, both Heather and Ricky, the two people that were in the truck that came to pick up Julie Nagel, Brian Jr., Caitlin, Tristan, who's Caitlin's boyfriend, Allie McCabe, and Colin Albert. No hurry to talk to any of them. Could be substantial witnesses, but he doesn't care. Instead, on February 8th, he drives his happy ass down to Pembroke. Why? Because he wants to talk to Laura Sullivan and her sister, Marietta. Are you wondering who they are? They are the two sisters that testified that John and Karen got in a fight when they were in Aruba a month earlier. And what Proctor's trying to do is he's trying to get these two people on the stand to say that Karen was a raging drunk, that she was mean, she hated John, that she thought that John made out with the younger sister Marietta while they were in Aruba, and that she's been holding a grudge for a month, and that's why she ran him over with her Lexus. Now, Pembroke is about, I don't know, anywhere between 35 and 60 minutes away from Canton. You've got 12 other people, really viable witnesses to what happened that night. Neither of the Sullivan sisters were at the waterfall, neither of them were at the party. They hadn't seen John in over a month. But that's who Proctor wanted to talk to. He could have talked to so many people without ever even leaving Canton. Never mind the 12 people I just mentioned, but there was Carrie Roberts, there was Lucky the snowplow driver, there was all the people at the waterfall, the neighbors. Like, he could have spoken to probably 30 different people to build a case. He didn't give a shit. He was following the evidence straight on down to Pembroke to talk to those Sullivan sisters. In fact, truth be told, it wasn't until the feds got involved in the investigation that a lot of these witnesses even got spoken to. Julie Nagel didn't get spoken to for 8 months after the incident. Caitlin and Ricky, neither of them were spoken to for 16 months. Brian Jr., 18 months. Allie McCabe, Lucky the snowplow driver, and Heather, the other passenger in the truck that night, 19 months. And Tristan, who is Caitlin's boyfriend, who came and went from the party twice that night, it took them 2 full fucking years to talk to that guy. But here's Proctor, texting not just friends, but coworkers, his supervisors. He's saying things like, she's fucked. 0 chance she skates. These are direct quotes. He's got this wrapped up because from the very beginning, he had Karen in his crosshairs and he wasn't going to let her go. We discovered in the cross today, and Alan Jackson did a brilliant job as usual, but he questioned why the SUV was even taken to the Sallyport in Canton, which was not really protocol. There were 2 other locations that the state police can use for impounded vehicles. He didn't need to take it to the Canton Sallyport, but he did. Curious as to why. And there was an hour of that time missing, that it may have sat in the Sallyport or en route to the Sallyport where time just sort of went missing. I already mentioned that he took, I believe it was 5 different trips back to the scene. So after the car had been impounded, it was Proctor himself that went back to the scene no less than 5 times and continued to magically find evidence as the snow melted. He also testified that retired Chief Berkowitz, so the guy who lives across the street is the former police chief there in Canton. He's retired. He's got no fucking business going back to the station and into the Sallyport. And it would be different if he was retired, but they hadn't really replaced him yet. So he was kind of acting as a stand-in or a consultant of some sort. But there's a new chief, Chief Rafferty. Chief Rafferty was the one that provided the video, apparently, I guess, to Proctor. But it looks like maybe the video that Rafferty might have gotten from Berkowitz might have been altered. So now today on the stand, it looks like Proctor pulled Berkowitz ass first back into this thing. And again, it was Berkowitz that found that big chunk of taillight as he just happened to be driving by. Just driving by, oh, what's that on the road? Big, huge, honking piece of taillight. I just can't with these people. I can't with the lying. I can't with the mistreatment of Karen Read. There's fucking corruption at every level, and it is ridiculous. Michael Proctor needs to be brought up on charges. It's that simple.